Hello and welcome to the Nonsense of History Newsweek in Review. I'm your host, Reverend Pizza Body. Thank you for joining us. We started off this week with the lizard-like reptilian Mark Zuckerberg talking to our catastrophic government. He told them about what happened on the whole data breach issue of Facebook users. I mean, how stupid could you possibly be? Do you really think Zuckerberg, quote-unquote, started a website so you could show off your bullshit life through the lens of the internet and show all your so-called friends the bright side of life while never showing the dark side? Like the wretched dump you took right after a night of drunken pulled pork sandwiches that when deposited into the bowl looked exactly like bloodied pulled pork sandwiches. No, he didn't do it for that reason. He did it to create the biggest data mine the world has ever seen. Of course, nothing did and nothing will happen to Zuckerberg. He's the chosen one for this data mining operation. We could only hope this data mine implodes and all the Facebook users cry like their little buttholes cry tears of feces over the toilet after a night of drunken pulled pork sandwiches. Moving on to hopefully less graphic news. Also this week, teachers in Oklahoma and other parts of the country walked out of their schools in protest of not being paid enough. These lazy teachers just wanted more time off, like having a full summer off plus weeks of paid time off throughout the year isn't enough. I got news for these lazy teachers. What other job would pay you a full-time salary to work 75% of the year? No other job would. So stop your complaining and get back to work. And if you don't like your salary, you have the freedom to go work somewhere else. I didn't like getting paid $4.50 an hour at the local beef and cheese shack. So you know what? I claimed disability and now I make the equivalent of $10 an hour thanks to our socialist friends in the American government. I asked, what could I do for my country? And I was told I could collect checks from them each month. That's what I could do. The hashtag Red for Ed was also associated with the teacher walkout across the country this week. This was slightly confusing for some people. I personally thought it had something to do with a woman's monthly cycle. I couldn't understand the connection between a woman's period and education. I'm glad someone clarified this for me. In international news this week, the United States, along with Great Britain and France, bombed Syria in response to an alleged chemical attack. Vladimir Putin condemned the attack, saying that the U.S. and its allies violated United Nations charters. Personally, I don't think Trump or Putin are terrible people. Trump seems like a fun guy who likes to make love to attractive women. Who doesn't like that? Well, I guess men who lie with other men wouldn't like that. If they saw one of these attractive Eastern European Trump prizes naked, they would probably throw up all over themselves. I like Putin too. He seems like he could really beat the shit out of me. That's a real man's man. Please don't hurt me, Mr. Putin. Thank you. In entertainment news, the Coachella Music Festival will kick off this weekend. Some of the headliners for this smelly hippie festival will be Bianchi, Eminem, and The Weeknd. Coachella is being held in the California desert. Just what we need, a bunch of smelly liberals running around a desert, doing drugs and engaging in immoral behavior. Back in my day, we held concerts in arenas and clubs, not in some trendy communist desert. Now moving on to sports. This week in sports, we saw mostly rich black men throwing a ball in a hoop, mostly rich white men trying to put a ball in a hole, mostly Canadian men skating on frozen water, and mostly boring men standing on a field putting a massive amount of people to sleep. We won't talk about soccer even though most of the world loves it. Americans don't really care about it, and that's all that matters. The weather for the week will be damp and cold on the East Coast. What else is new? California and much of the West Coast will be sunny with highs in the mid to upper 70s with a 100% chance of communist laws and restricted personal freedoms. The weather for the middle of the country will be a mix of all that I just mentioned, but who really cares? The middle of America doesn't really count anyway. We will now leave you with a feel-good story of the week to hopefully make up for the horrible fear-induced state we just left you in by telling you all the horrific things that are going on in the world now. In New York City, a subway worker saved the life of a pit bull puppy who was injured on the tracks. The MTA workers were finally able to pull the dog to safety after the train's driver was able to slow the train down enough to keep the dog from being run over. 3 rats and about 200 cockroaches were killed by the same train while the conductor slowed the train down to avoid the dog. All of the MTA workers were so happy they were able to save the dog. They all went out after work and celebrated with a nice cow dinner. I mean steak dinner. Go figure. Thanks for tuning in. I'm your browbeating host, Reverend Pizza Body. We will see you next time. So long for now. Bye. See ya.